a conversation about the new moon in Aquarius, then what are tools that we can generate with the new moon specifically that are centered in Aquarian energy? Like, what can we learn from Aquarians that we can embody for ourselves?
I think that's a good starting point. I think one, being really open to anything, any possibility. I think that we all, like, of course, everybody sees, it's the age of Aquarius and, anything is possible. But looking at what that looks like on an individual level, I think it's totally different. Totally different. I mean, I think because it really suggests some high level manifestation. If you got to see it, I mean, and I think that again, it kind of goes back to the desire and feeling driven aspect or that of life or perspective or approach that some people may have. But like with Aquarius, it's not a desire driven. It's not, I want this, it's really just seeing the future. No matter how outrageous that may seem to the individual, or even, like allowing yourself to have this wild, like, vision that might seem radical to others, that might seem even radical to yourself. Envisioning that and seeing it, right? I think it's how, even with like Aquarius, when we go into Pisces, it because you have to have this like vision, right? You have to have this idea that this is possible, or what if it's like this, right? And then you go into Pisces where it's really implanted in the subconscious.
So Aquarius helps us, it allows space for us to see the vision, to get to where it's been planted. Yeah.
Exactly. And, like basic astrology is speaking to how each sign feeds into the other. This is the core of it. And this is why I think it's important to have that basic astrology, to even really, some things about the chart you might forget or miss, knowing that the relationship between Aquarius and Pisces. Why is Aquarius next to Pisces? It's because what we see now, what we get from Uranus, usually Uranus influence of like this lightning, this light bulb or epiphanies that you get definitely in Aquarius, right? You get it mentally, you receive it, and it's in Pisces, though, where it gets implanted in the subconscious, where it's the workings are happening somewhere on another plane that are facilitating. And even like, for instance, like with the Neptune, this is why Hollywood is Neptune ruled. And I see this so much in my life in general, like in looking at different aspects of quote unquote Hollywood, is like you see the Neptune influence, like this otherworldly, these dreams, this real subconscious operation that I'm sure at some point did not seem to even be a reality or possibility. Right? I think that going back, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's had its progressions and, but I'm sure 50, 100 years from now, none of us could have foreseen that it was going to get like this. Look at the things we're learning, the things that have gone on in the past. And, I think it's speaking, these things were clearly implanted in somebody's subconscious.
Yeah.
Right? In
for
order
you to dream that, write that up. Yeah.
So from there, I think that we are kind of backtracking so many years ago where Aquarius was, and things that were being thought into reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, these wild ideas that people have, or insights, or, the truth is that some of these dreams are visiting people, right? Like, what is it they say about the muse? Like, it visits you, and if you don't act on it, or if you are unable to, like, entertain the idea,
mm-hmm.
then it visits someone else.
Right.
But we are in a place now, I think, that is specifically, like, malleable, I think, for all of us, where you're looking at things, all the planets are going forward right now, and you can really see a future.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can really, like, you know what, this might be possible.
Mm-hmm.
Or, it'd be crazy. Like, this is the time, I think, that supports that kind of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Really, like, the door is wide open. What can you envision?
Mm-hmm.
For yourself, for others, and I think on a global scale, even with, like, unfortunate circumstances, people's hope and confidence in what is possible is amazing right now. It's everything. It's driving people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even about what it looks like. It's like, nope, I know that this can happen.
Mm-hmm.
I know that this will happen. And I think that is very Uranian influenced, and Aquarius tool that's already being used.
Mm.
This radical, people are radically looking forward into the future and imagining possibilities that may have been thought impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe still be considered impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Doing things in an unconventional way. How can we look at things and not say, oh, the generation did it like this, or before me did it like this, or not even considering those things. Like, look at where we are with AI now. We knew this was coming.
Yep.
But I don't even think that most of us could have foreseen how quickly it would be incorporated in day-to-day life.
Yeah.
It's hit like lightning.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, we had this idea, okay, yeah, we know this will be done, blah, blah. And it's just slipped in, has become a part of day-to-day life, and people are using it every day already.
Every day.
I don't think it wasn't too long ago we were playing with the idea of it even existing.
Mm-hmm. Playing with the samples of it. You were talking about Hollywood. If you watch some old movies that were just using CGI or making water be more dramatic, or like certain animals, how they look, that was all a practice in the development of AI. And now we have apps that are AI generated to alter,
and it's in the hands of the consumer,
and alter our own selves, how we look.
Exactly. Man, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we needed social media to even be able to say, oh, okay, I have this whole platform that shares, in quotes, who I am. Now I have an app to alter who I am, and I can use this version of myself to now share, quote unquote, with the world.
Yes, which I think is phenomenal in a lot of ways, and definitely changes the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were saying with Hollywood, or even like where we are now, we have social media and people are becoming stars, quote unquote, in the way that they were, that you would have had to go through the ranks of Hollywood, right? And now we have these people shoulder to shoulder with people that just started posting a lot of content.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
It's revolutionary.
Yeah.
Yeah. It because essentially accessibility has changed.
Mm-hmm.
right? I can reach the world from my house.
Wow.
We talk about like people like that, especially like actresses and things like that, that actually had to move to LA. You know, you hear about that. Like, oh, they, uprooted my kids and my family. I was a single mother. We moved to LA so I could make it, and blah, blah, blah. And then you have somebody now who was doing skits at home that was just funny as shit. And catapulted themselves in the same way.
In the same way, yeah. Didn't have to move a muscle.
Exactly. So I think that we were talking about the future, and here we are.
Yeah. But I guess how do we continue to build relationships? How do we sustain like in-person, tangible, I can touch people, I can remember that this is not real, that AI is not real. In the same vein that you do have to have or develop community. I think that's the part that's
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's the part that I feel is challenging for me.
Why do you feel it's challenging?
Because I do feel in the example of, okay, this person doesn't have to move to LA or move anywhere to drive their career. They don't have to leave their house. But what happens when you start to believe and make that your life, where you don't engage with people at all anymore in real time?
Oh, I see. Well, two things I think I need to make a difference in just from the way that I see it, is that the people that have maybe, like we said, maybe post some things and went viral or have catapulted themselves into this reality or it's changed their lives, right? They've used the tool in a way that was beneficial to them, right? And this is the importance of making sure that it's a tool that's being used. When I start to alter my life in general, every aspect, just like with the chart, we have different houses on the chart, right? One house we might look at is going to be focused upon where things like technology come into play, where everyday interactions happen, okay? That's one house in the chart. That's just one house in the chart. There's still things going over here with the third house, right? My family, my siblings, my cousins, my neighbors, then we still have my community as a whole over here in the 11th house. So what I mean is that anything that's bleeding over and takes over the chart as a whole, or takes over the life as a whole, is going to become a malignancy. So one, and the reason I make that distinction is because how we know that the AI aspect, or what we're doing on, say, social media, how we know that this is maybe not always the healthiest thing, or how we still know that the community is important, is because people are still engaging in it. Right? We still are interacting with people, and we must. We must, because it is still the basis of our reality. So you have to attend to the self as a whole, holistically. right? I still need touch. I still need to feel. I need to connect. I need to have conversations that are not recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Those are pertinent parts of everyday life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that when we fall into one box or the other and it dominates, there's disease.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that it takes a while to establish certain balance in life, and it's definitely not easy to maintain. But one has to seek to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I mean? Like, even if, say, for instance, you post this and it's your life and now everything is wonderful, if you lack one-on-one connections with people, if you are lacking engaging in some sort of a community of like-minded people, there will be suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you are having this fame, or even if you are experiencing, like viral videos and things like that, the pain, the fact that there's suffering is telling you that there's something not being met.
Yeah.
And so I think that seeking to be whole, as we all, essentially are, right? Mm-hmm. And should be, as long as we're here on Earth, we've got to calibrate some kind of way. And as long as that's still happening, it doesn't allow one to dominate the other. It just makes room for one. Mm-hmm. But we still got communities out here, right? We still got people out here physically in love, like physically connecting with one another. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, and these things are still like, they're on the other end of the spectrum. Yeah. Right? Nobody stopped having babies out here.
That's true.
Now, I mean, the methods in which they have it may be a little bit questionable. Yeah. But, and this is where I think that, reality is still the basis here. Yeah. It's still what it is on a day-to-day basis, what I see when I wake up in the morning, when I step out my door, that still matters. Yes. That still matters. What I'm touching, my physical experience, right? These things are still pertinent. But I do understand that I think with the involvement, and this is where I think people may be getting real or honest with themselves about how much time they spend online. Yes. Yeah. Has to be a constant conversation. I think it's going to be, it for me, looking in this Aquarian aspect, it has to be an ongoing check-in that's happening. Yeah. I think that's where I was getting at too. And even thinking about like our kids, how much access they have to information and technology or virtual realities, that it is equally as important to, you have to still step outside your front door and experience this reality. I think that it is critical. Yeah. It's critical. And I think that parents, that for any of us that can remember a time without the internet and social media, there was only one reality. Right. And even that was complicated. Yeah, especially depending on where you were. Where you were, the age. Yeah. What was going on at school. A lot of what was going on with your parents, that was complicated. Yeah. And so to bring in something like social media, overwhelm, I totally understand. It makes perfect sense. But I think that, like, for, like you said, and I know this makes me sound old school, but I really don't give a shit. People are going to have to be vigilant about, because when kids walk outside the door, we all walk outside the door. We see what is going on in the world. We see things changing. We go to school. We go to work. Mm-hmm. We see these things. It's inevitable. Mm-hmm. So the only power you really have is at home. Mm-hmm. And if you want to give them a head start in some ways, the time that they're on home is the only time that you can really help them. Mm-hmm. And that may mean by outlawing cell phones for a bit. Yeah. It might mean that, no, you sure cannot. Nope. Nope. This is a phone-free zone. Mm-hmm. And not to just police them, but also to help them understand that there is a time to put the phone down. Right. That also that this mind of yours, mm-hmm. this precious, precious mind of yours. Powerful. How much control and access to this mind are you going to give away? Mm-hmm. How much are you going to allow images to be implanted in this mind? Mm-hmm. How often are you going to be plugged in? I think that we're coming to a place where, as I look at just individually and I look at like where we are technology wise, like, age of the Aquarius and how all the planets are kind of, piling up a little bit. We're not piling up, but we've got Mercury and mainly, especially Pluto, in Aquarius and looking at how that changes the world. I'm noticing who I admire more. Paying attention to who are the people, everyday people, that I admire. And for me, it's a practice of one, looking for positive things in people. I have to. If I look at social media, if I look at the news, I'm going to hate the world. Yeah. Right? And so my intention is to look and seek positive into people. Also because of my own belief that it's there. Mm-hmm. And the people that really get my attention are the ones that I see that engage in technology, that are here and present in this world, but are still free. They're not bound by it. Yeah, some people will say, you go to lunch with a friend or somebody, you go talk to somebody, and obviously I think in your case, this may apply to older people, and you kind of talk to them and they'll say, oh, where's my phone? Mm-hmm. And how bizarre that is now. Mm-hmm. Like everybody else has got their phone in their hand, or in the pocket, strapped to the body in some form or fashion. And this person says, I don't know where my phone is. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, that makes me think my friend from college, she would always say, hey, my phone is in my room. If you need me, if it's an emergency, I'm in the library. But her commitment to not having her phone with her during studying time or reading or when she really needed to focus, and how she still does that till this day. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure she will. Mm-hmm. I mean, because she's committed to not being plugged in at all times. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so for me, this is where I find freedom. This is also where I find safety. Mm. This is where I find safety. And people that can exist, that are not getting nervous when their phone is not with them, and the strongest of the people are those who not only are not attached to their phones, but those who teach the others in their community to not expect them to be attached to the phone. Mm-hmm. they teach people that there are times I'm unreachable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wild.
There's a shock factor.
I think for certain groups it is.
Yeah.
I think for certain groups it really is. I just realizing even with all the technology we've had, and it's all rushed in, I think, so fast for all of us,
mm-hmm.
which is a wonderful thing in some ways, because I can remember a time when we would hear about new technologies and you expect in maybe 20 to 30 years to maybe have that reachable on a normal level.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I remember being, I think it was junior high. I believe it was junior high, somewhere around there. They were, looking at different technologies and things that were going to change. And I remember then fantasizing about, they were saying in the year 2050 or whenever, that people would be able to call each other on the phone and instantly see each other. I can clearly remember that.
Wow.
They were oh yeah, we're going to have phones. That's what they're talking about. Yeah, people there are going to be phones and you're going to be able to call somebody and just see their face, right instantly.
Wow.
And we weren't, I know that at the time when they would say that, we didn't know, we weren't even sure that would happen in our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we saw such an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and this is possible. Or we figured that the most elite would have this technology and it wouldn't reach common people. We weren't sure if it would reach them in our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
That's how slow things moved.
Right.
And to one conversation, 2, 3 conversations about AI, and now we're on ChatGPT. What?
Yeah, we got ChatGPT, we got apps. I'm sure there's things I don't even know that we have or that hasn't reached us common folk yet. But it will soon.
Exactly.
Sooner than we may anticipate. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think that for me, the Aquarian, the tool in this phase is holding tighter, I think, to those good old conversations on the phone.
Mm.
Savoring those people in your life that you just be on the phone with.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I have to be we have been on this phone for 2 hours. And realizing that is such a delicious feeling.
It adds pleasure.
What a privilege. I'm sorry?
It adds pleasure. There's pleasure in it.
Oh, clearly. Mm-hmm. Clearly. Yeah. But it's not just that, it's that it's a privilege.
Mm.
There are people, like you said, your first question, there are people struggling with connection that have reached this or attained this thought of idea of accomplishment with online or social media, that the simple pleasures of just lingering on the phone, they don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, as with everything, it's all connected. But for me right now, this looking forward means looking back.
Mm.
Because where I'm finding is that my pleasures, real pleasures, like I said, for me right now, a good phone conversation just a good phone conversation while I'm doing the dishes, while I'm doing this, talking to somebody that I love. It's such a gem. It's so precious to me. I want to race home and get in something comfortable. And get in something super comfortable and just have one of those conversations. And I know have you had the kind of conversation with a person where you sometimes have to lay down?
Yes. You can put your feet up.
And I will find myself feet in the air, just on the phone, just basking in the relating of ideas and the joy of talking to a like-minded or maybe not like-minded at all soul. Just agreeing with a loved one about different points of how we see things. These are the moments that I wish I could bottle and take up. And the truth is that when I was discovering real human connection, when I was probably junior high, it was just that.
It was, on the phone.
It was on the phone. I had a hidden phone.
Yes.
I'll never forget, we used to have have you seen the phone that is transparent? You can see all the wires and everything on the inside of it.
I think so.
And there's a light. So when it rings, the phone lights
up. Yeah.
That, first of all, I get a little bit of a rush when I even talk about it because that was the shit. Like, that was like the what? We were like, what? Because here's the thing. If you had a phone curfew, okay, I grew up with a phone curfew, meaning if 9 o'clock was your time to be off the phone, right? And it had to be that way because those of us that were really, really just thirsting for that, we'd be on the phone all night long. It was all about falling asleep on the phone with somebody. It's literally spending the night together. And never mind the fact that the family shared one phone line. So grandma couldn't call. Just nobody could get through. So all that to say, phone curfew became important if you had a teenager in the house. And if you had a low-key secret phone, right? Okay, you couldn't just grab any phone and use it as your low-key phone. I mean, even though when times got hard, you did, right? And that was my first time in life testing psychic behavior. Real, solid experimenting with psychic behavior. I should have known my life would go from there. But before, when I had the means, if you could get your hands on this phone and it lit up when it rings. So long story short, after your phone curfew, nobody knew you had this phone. Everybody goes to bed. You plug your phone into the phone jack and turn the ringer off. Because obviously somebody would hear the phone ring, right? Well, you turn it off so when it rings, it lights up. Now, wait, now I'm missing a point. You would have to go turn the ringers off of all the other phones in the house.
What?
Oh, yes, girl. It was a whole, spy operation. You had to be, scaling the wall to go turn the ringer off your mom's phone. Then turn the ringer off the phone in the kitchen. And so in order for your phone to ring, and you would see your phone light up, you tell them, call me 11 o'clock, you know what I'm saying? Bam, everybody's ringer off. Hello.
Wow.
And you can have that conversation. Now, never mind the fact that you also had to be on your shit because you also had to get back in there and turn all those ringers back on. Or it was going to be 2 p.m. the next day. Your mom realizes that her mom has been calling to tell her auntie passed, but the phones never rang.
It never rang. Lord.
And this is what we would do for just to have a one-on-one phone conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to have that just, and this is just sound connection. You can't even see people. So I can remember doing this for somebody I had never met in person before.
Mm.
And never did, ever.
Yeah.
And here I am now, 30 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I'm rushing home to get comfortable to talk on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about even FaceTiming. It's even like, I think sometimes where you and I have talked about, like with Voodoo Astrology,
mm-hmm.
and me finding that I can give to people sometimes better.
Mm-hmm.
Just a phone conversation.
Just on the phone, yeah.
Not a FaceTime. No texting. Just a good old phone conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Voice to voice. Being heard. Being able to share without being seen. So for me, that is where I think that Aquarius for me is right now. I'm just seeing so much value in that one-on-one connection.
Yeah.
And seeing that one of the new currencies as we go into this era with AI and how social media has developed and changed is that the real diamonds are these one-on-one connections.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's these one-on-one deep connections that are not dependent on a certain type of technology.
Yeah.
It's like we've gotten to this place of where technology is dominant, and it's fine where we are, right? But I think the value now is looking back and seeing what survived it.
Mm.
What has not been able to be impacted by it. And one of those things for me is good old conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are having that in a community sense, but not even just in a community sense, it's like I said with the charts, the houses on the chart.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to be hitting different houses in the chart at different times simultaneously in order for us to feel whole.
Mm-hmm.
When we lean into one aspect and it starts to color everything in the chart,
yeah,
we're in trouble. We are complex beings. We need a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We also need to give a lot as well. And so it's fine to have the tools, use the tools, just don't let the tools use you.
Mm.
You know, I think, what was it, like Prince was saying, it's fine to get on the internet, just don't let the internet get on you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think truer words have been spoken.
Mm.
I think that identifying I think that the time, like we've discussed, like with AI, from the time of conversation about it to it being a reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's happened so damn fast. And I think that will continue throughout this Aquarian era. The age of Aquarius is the nature of it. So I think looking at the areas where things are working, looking at the good connections, looking at the good routines, ones that feed us, and tucking it away, you know, making sure that it sticks with you. Yeah, a lot of things are going to change, right? But these are things that I value and that I will keep closer, you know, keep close to me as, you know, AI is ruling out. Like, even with, like, for instance, like, with now we've had filters, we have, like, you know, like you said, AI, you can change it. Man, those old school Polaroids.
Yes.
Are again like diamonds.
Mm-hmm.
Because those are going to be the things that tell us how people really look back in the day.
How they were, yeah.
Yeah, because people are altering everything online.
I saw a video of a second line in the 70s. And I was like, man, there's some things about Second Line that have not changed. But the quality of the video, what people were wearing, even how the street looked, it was just different.
Oh, of course. As well as should be.
Mm-hmm. But also, like, really being able to understand the time capsule of that and having a little slight, like, oh, wow, I wasn't alive to experience this, but there's something in me that wish I could have, and also being able to see that it's not even close to this anymore.
Yes. You need the basis of reference.
Mm-hmm.
It's important.
Mm-hmm. How
else are we going to know how far we've come?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a scary thing about the AI stuff is I'm concerned that some people use internet and different social media platforms as their basis of reality.
Right.
And so, one, you can't mark change that way, but I don't think even they remember where they came from anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's kind of looking back as we go forward.
Yeah.
Looking how we got here, and while we acknowledge how far we've come and we celebrate how far we've come. Mm-hmm. So let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I think that there's a structure, there's a rhyme and reason to life itself that comes into play as we race into the future. Like I said, I think with especially all the planets forward, at least until April, it really, it's all systems go. Mm-hmm. And we deserve it. It's been real. I know this last, full moon wasn't easy for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And even now, I think that Uranus's aspects, like in the lightning-like feeling, has been unfolding for some. Mm-hmm. It has been an instantaneous, like when we talked about it, and then I think that's why, before I was saying, with the full moon aspect or the new moon aspect, I was trying not to reference it as much, mm-hmm. simply because different people in different time zones are experiencing things in different time. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Some things that have already hit are still unfolding in mm-hmm. the lives of others. Mm-hmm. They're still kind of coming to the surface. And even after this point and moving forward, I think that with all the planets, moving forward, there are some people that won't fully feel that for a little bit.
Yeah.
But with that said, and where was I going with this? Good question. Very good question.
Why you didn't mention the aspects so much when you did when we were talking about the full moon?
Right, and it was because of timing. I think that a lot of these aspects, and how they're activated, I think it's different for different people. Mm-hmm. Charts are different. Everybody has their suns, their ascendants, right? And mm-hmm. then the houses that are affected by these signs as well. And it all mm-hmm. kind of happens in its own timing, as it should. This is why we're individuals. Mm-hmm. But while the collective feelings, I think the most sensitive of us, obviously, may feel certain things around certain amounts, certain times. I'll say that. Mm-hmm. Not definitive, but definitely the most sensitive souls, I think, pick up on changes, energetic changes. But I think that the natural progression that's in place, the Capricornian structure in each one of our lives, that we have to deal with certain things before we can get to the next part or the next chapter, has to be honored. It has to be honored. And the individual timing for each and every person, it matters. It matters. You know, there are certain, I often remind myself is like, you know, some people I know will think like, okay, well, I know this and they don't know that. And I try to stay as much as possible away from thinking like that because it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. And there are certain conclusions that people have come to that have not even crossed my mind. And this is, again, the importance of this good old connections and conversations, sharing information. Something powerful happens. And communities are united by looking at what we have in common, you know? What have y'all learned? Because we need to know it, you know? I had an interaction not too long ago with a lady, a Pakistani lady, who was a very advanced activist and doing a lot of brilliant work politically and community-wise. And she's one of the first that I've heard to openly speak to, she was such a kindred spirit to me because what she was talking about is communities uniting. And she was speaking about, like, for her personally, the Pakistani community and how they could benefit from aligning themselves with the African American community.
Yes, yeah.
But I mean, there's been a time when saying such out loud sounded outrageous. And there's also been a time when it wasn't an outrageous idea. It's just like, you think that shit can happen? You know, also like, do y'all know how much they don't like us? Like, you know what I mean? And times, like, how much has changed, and now that we are in a place where very Aquarian oriented, we are talking about possibilities that were unheard of. You know, communities joining and in a like-minded way that might just change this damn world. Might just change this world.
And how that's another offering of a reality for everyone.
1,000%. And one that I think that this is, again, where like the technology has helped.
Where it is a positive, there's a positive to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, like, when I think about, like, the Sudanese circumstance, when we look at the Palestinian circumstance, even with, like, and then looking at, like, for instance, civil rights here in the U.S., right? Before, information took so long to move, right? Like, before, even, like, with, like, the African-American circumstance, when people talk about Malcolm X and we talk about, like, what his goal was in terms of uniting, like, or elevating the civil rights, you know, struggle to a global struggle. Like, it's so awesome because that's becoming a reality. Right? But there was a time when what was going on in Palestine, and definitely when we go back as far as, like, 1948, and which is why I think it's important that people, like, you know, bring up, like, that this has been going on for a very long time. This did not start October 7, okay?
Yeah.
But I will say this, though, but pre-internet, social media, it would take years for any of us to find out what's going on the other side of the world. Or to find out that what they are doing to us, they are doing to others. Simultaneously. That, I mean, is revolutionary. And it for me, with, like, it's like the Aquarius, like, the Uranian, like, sunlight is just like the lightning on us. Like, yo, this is not just possible, but it's happening. And you might have what you need right now to propel you and others forward in this journey, in this fight, and making really, I mean, it was the same with, like, for me, with Black Lives Matter. It wasn't just the unity, I think, speaking stateside, but seeing small little countries in solidarity, right?
Yeah.
Just like, it's the same way here. I mean, that for me, it makes it all worth it.
Right.
It's why we can't just be on some, like, oh, throw technology out and go back the way it was. We can't afford that.
It's still a tool.
It's still a tool. It's a huge tool. And as with everything else, like we talked about the feelings, right? You can't throw it all out.
Yeah.
Yes, we have had times in this journey where we feel like people are losing their minds. We don't need this shit. Right. But we're not going to abandon the journey because of how we feel today. Finding the balance. This is where I think that, especially talking about tools of Aquarius, look at me bringing it back.
Okay. I'm here for it.
But the Aquarian detachment. The Aquarian detachment, which I know is sometimes perceived as cold, or kind of aloof. But seeing the purpose in that, seeing the purpose in how can I sometimes detach from my feelings about this? Because I've already determined, or I've already decided, this is the approach I'm taking, and we ain't going back. Right? So yes, like I said, acknowledging those feelings, but not letting them drive the bus. And I think that, Aquarian energy is strong in that place of kind of disconnecting from everything, even if it's briefly, and just gaining perspective and seeing that sometimes being detached is stronger. And it's not being cold or not, abandoning, or I don't care, but it is going sometimes to that safe place within you, perching yourself somewhere so you can just look at things with an aerial view and say, okay, what's going on here? And how am I contributing? And how would I like to contribute? Okay, I see that where things are going, where do I find myself in the midst of that? Where do I insert my effort in a way that's wise?
Because there's also something about Aquarians that in the aloofness, they're also very quirky.
Oh, that's part of it.
It's about being, I'm this individual, and I see my individual self as it relates to and can be of support and of influence in this collective understanding of us being a society of togetherness.
I think that I think what you're speaking of, I totally agree with you, but I think that it actually, the being of assistance is about the humanitarian aspect of Aquarian. I don't think that Aquarian, or I don't often, and I hope not, the thing about being of service is, and I think from an Aquarian standpoint, is wanting to aid humanity, wanting to serve humanity as a whole. But the quirkiness or the weirdo-ness aspect is completely individual. It's not a need to be quirky, because that's a performance. Weirdos are just weirdos. They just they know they're weird, but
they own that.
They're not necessarily as involved with the opinions of others, and this is again coming back to that detached aspect that I think is helpful. I think that when I'm thinking about just the quirkiness, but like the serving, like for instance, like thinking about, if we're going to talk about like Aquarian suns, right? Like like Marley, like a Nesta Marley, like so much of an Aquarian, what we embody as an Aquarian, speaking to the future. What was outrageous when he was younger, you know, what was this one love idea. And even I remember a time when, I mean, I came up in the 80s. Obviously, he was much, older at that time because he had died, I think, at 78. But legalize it. At the time, when I was coming up in the 80s, when people were talking about, when the first time I heard Peter Tosh legalize it, I didn't think those things were possible. The people, the adults that I were around, while they were definitely engaging, they had no faith in it becoming legal. And I mean, it was such a visionary. It was so innovative in that way. Clearly, he could see what we couldn't. And the faith in that vision, something again serving humanity. Not even just about the personal consumption, but speaking to now where we are in medicine in a research capacity, right? Looking in at the benefits of cannabis, looking again at the medicinal application of it, right? And seeing Marley was onto something.
Yeah.
Like,
He had an idea going. He ran with that, yeah.
Like, and we rethought about it. You might got a point there.
Yeah.
And that I think, like you said, that Aquarian quirkiness of seeing something as a possibility. And I mean, for me, I love this about if you encounter Aquarians that are really close to self-actualization, I can trust their weirdness, trust their outlier energy, and I can be confident in what they're speaking to. And for this very reason, and so many others, obviously not only Molly. But I think, visualizing a future for us on a collective scale, seeing some things that are, that are possible that we cannot see for ourselves as a community or as a whole is how we got here.
Yeah.
It's how we got to this moment, technologically speaking, collectively speaking. It's
the ability to.
It's ushered us in. No, wait, what else was I going to say? So what do you see or what questions do you think we should go on when you look at the chart that we're looking at? I guess it's 2:07 p.m.
I mean, I think you really, I think you kind of brought it home. I was just about to say that it really feels like a time where we're giving space to truly imagine for ourselves.
I agree. I think that, and I think that's key for this future that we're manifesting. I think that even as I see things online, I see real tools, even tools of manifestation that are far more accessible than they were 20 years ago. So many things that I would read about mystics years and years ago and seeing those things online and seeing that these are tools that people don't have to dig so hard for anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think that while it may not be instantaneous that we see it, I think that we are in for a radical future.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful. I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, not just on a grand scale, but even as over the next month or so, I think that we are looking at progress in so many different ways. I think with the aspects with Jupiter, and I said I wasn't going to lean heavy, but even with I will say with the planetary play, the planets, the placements, even with some of the activations, and that's given squares, quinquunks, textiles. I still think that this is a time we've been waiting for. That's what it is.
Yeah. To be able to imagine and make some action or implementation of things.
And I think that also with the things that have come up in people to be addressed, and some of those even things that might have been perceived negative have been so necessary. You know, sometimes connections need to fall apart to make room for new ones. You know, this is, the full moon and new moon cycle. You see what had to end, not just as something ended, but you see, I had to let that go because this has shown up. And we are in, I think, with this, at least this period of forward movement, we are now maybe seeing, what I hope is that, my hope is that people will start to collectively see, and that this past period of turbulence, and see the purpose, see why it had to be turbulent leading up into this point. In order to get us into this phase where, it's been 2 steps forward, 1 step back in a lot of ways, but now things might move forward so fast it'll make your head spin. Yeah. So we had to go through some setbacks. To recalibrate us, make sure we was doing exactly what we thought we were doing, in order for us to even, just float forward for a little bit. But I think that, people need it. And even if some things we see or we're, of course we have our own timeline for things, but hopefully we can see the small steps forward. Yeah. Even if, see the small battles that we're winning, even if we're still at war.
Ooh, a word. Oh.
And that is where I think we should leave things this time.
Yeah.
This time.
Wow, Syrettah.
I can hear it.
I just said, wow. Yeah.
I think with this onset of spring, bringing us forward is exactly the experience I hope for us all collectively. Just not, obviously different people are going through different things, but if nothing else, just a feeling of progress. Feeling of taking a few steps forward into this future, into this new reality. small wins.
Yeah.
Before we get to, things get to heating up in the summer, planets get to slowing down, going backwards, shit coming back around, Let's bask in this forward movement. I know for a good amount of people, it will result in a sense of relief. Or maybe just a reprieve so you can catch your breath, And
catch your breath, have a glass of water, take a nice stroll.
Take a breather, before you have to get back in the ring.
Yeah. And
I think that just the forward movement is the celebration. Let's celebrate that. For those of us that feel like we can take a breath, do that. Do it even more so for those around you who cannot take a breath.
Right.
Because you doing so benefits them. And it better enables us to hold space for each other. And be present, Be present with where others are, regardless of where you are. And it's only in that way can we aid each other or even provide community support, Because even being in a good place is important, or being in a better place, because if I can acknowledge that I have a little bit more space, I have a little bit more bandwidth right now, I can then extend more grace to someone else who needs it. But if I'm still thirsting for more, and this isn't right, and that's not right, then I will be under the impression that I don't have anything to offer anybody.
Yeah.
So for those who have been going through it and who are not anymore, relax. And for those that are still going through it, to know that's going to change too.
Yeah.
We relax now because later we may not be able to do so.
Right.
And as are our counterparts who may not be able to take a breath at this time, know that they will. As will we all. And that, my dear, is a wrap for Voodoo Astrology.
Yes, okay. Ooh.
It's Aquarius New Moon. As we go into spring 2024.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you, madam.
I feel like if I could curtsy over the phone, I'd be like, thank you for being here today.
And I tip my hat to you, my dear. And as Johnny and Kehlani have taught me to say, like, follow, and subscribe.
Yes.
To Voodoo Astrology.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, that's what they've taught me to say.
On all platforms.
Yeah, on all of our social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Instagram,
YouTube. Oh, wow.
Yeah.